وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم فستبصر ويبصرون.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعليه وصحبه أجمعين ثم ما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So this will be a summary of the next session in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the teenage years, part 3, as this session was not recorded. So we are talking about now when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is now a young man and he is a young adult. He is an older teenager, and generally, when you get into your upper teens, we spoke about how this is the time that you are now more responsible. So you become more responsible, you shift and focus from just running around and playing and doing whatever you want, things you do in your younger teens. You know, when you're younger, it's more, I want to do what I want to do. You have a lot of energy running around. You're influenced by people, peer pressure. When you're around 13 to 16 years old, you're aware of your looks, your dress, what people think of you. As you are getting older in your upper teens, so maybe like 16, 17, 18, 19, you concern yourself about life. You start to think about how, applying to colleges, maybe university, getting a job. You start to look into life a bit more. And slowly you realize that you do have some sort of responsibility and you need to take some sort of responsibility for your future. And this is the first point. And the thing is, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we've talked about this before, that Abu Talib, he was a very simple man and he was in real financial difficulty. So the uncle, the Prophet ﷺ, is in real financial difficulty. And the Prophet ﷺ, we know he's very mature. We've talked about his maturity. So as a teenager, he's very mature. And he is aware of the struggles that his uncle is going through. He knows the financial difficulties of his uncle and how he's struggling to raise the family. So Prophet ﷺ, he's very motivated. He's very motivated and he's very concerned because he wanted to help out his uncle financially. So you have to understand, and this is, like we said, a lesson for the young people. What is the Prophet ﷺ is very motivated to get a job. Why does he want to get a job? To help out his family, not because he's really after the luxuries of life, because the material things, so he could fulfill his desires. And he was grateful for the people who are looking after him. So this is a lesson for the young people, for the youth, that earning money to help out your family, as well as earning money for yourself, you do that as well. But having a mindset that you should help the people around you, help the family, look out for the needs of your family. A primary reason why the Prophet ﷺ, the main reason he started to earn money, and this is how those of best character, this is how they'll think like. They'll be always concerned about those around them. So the closest to the Prophet ﷺ will be those who follow his example. So it'd be so things like helping out your family financially, and this is a very good motivation for you when you're looking for especially your first job as youth as well. So the Prophet ﷺ, we have to now just move on to this point. How did he actually earn his money? Because what you have to remember, the Prophet ﷺ, what could he do for a job at that time? You have to understand the culture at that time. So the thing is that the Quraysh were an elite tribe, right? The Quraysh, the Banu Hashim, were an elite family, the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's coming from a family of leadership. Abu Talib, he's the grandson of Abu Talib. So, for someone growing up in that society, there's a very elitist mentality, meaning that it's not like it's acceptable for you to do certain type of jobs because you're from an elite family, right? And we have this culture maybe nowadays as well. Like you mentioned, you go to maybe Arab countries, you don't see the Arabs doing manual jobs like cleaning and any labor jobs. You see them sort of always um, in leadership positions and looking after things, and that's the sort of mentality that existed at the time of Jahiliyyah, which is obviously is not correct per se, but this is what the mentality was. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he it wasn't appropriate for him to do manual jobs like cutting grass or working in construction or physical labor or carpentry or delivery boy or courier boy or things like this. These were not acceptable. The family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not accept this, and this would be like a disrespect for the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You're from the Banu Hashim, from the Quraysh. you know the reason is because the people of the Quraysh, the Banu Hashim, they were actually merchants, they were businessmen, which was the most prestigious, respectful job, was in that society was being a merchant, being an international merchant. Like you go to, like you spoke about, Rihlat al-Shita, it was safe. You go to Yemen, you go to Sham, you bring goods and you sell them. This is an international merchant. This is the job that gives you the most respect. And this is what the family does of the Banu Hashim of the Quraysh. So, like for example, in our time when we were growing up, you have to be a doctor, right? So that's what the culture was. Like you have to be a doctor, you have to go to medical school, nothing else is acceptable. So, in our class, we had like 15, 16 students, and literally all of them, everyone wanted to be a doctor. Everybody was applying for medical school at A levels. And this is, so this is, for example, because at that time that was considered sort of the elite, the most respectful job. So there is pressure in the community, in society, all the time. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was obviously young. He was obviously quite young, but at that time the pressure was the community. The elite job was being an international merchant, doing business. But the thing was, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Talib, he was not going to let him do it. And the reason was, like we said last time, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went to a Sham on a business trip. The meeting with Buhaira, and he had to return back with Abu Talib for his own safety. So Abu Talib was not going to let the Prophet ﷺ travel and do business because it was too risky, knowing that this child is a special child and people are going to be after him maybe and have bad intentions. So Abu Talib was not going to allow any of that. And the Prophet ﷺ, he even said to Abu Talib, I want to join the business trip and I want to go and help the family make money, because he knew that this is what he could do at the time. The only real job he could do, which was accepted, respectful, was an international merchant. But he wanted to do it, but Abu Talib, he would not let him do it. He said, you're not going anywhere because, we talked about how, this was very difficult previously as well. And Abu Talib was looking after Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, and also he was, even being an older teenager, he was still considered sort of quite young to be starting this job at the moment. So the thing is, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he couldn't do any labor work. So what was he supposed to do? Like, what was he supposed to do? And talk about, he couldn't do most jobs, like we've just said, he just couldn't do most jobs. So what could he actually do? There was one job, there's only one other job that was valued in society at the time. And this job was, even if you're from an elite family, this is actually very valued. Because the way that this type of work was viewed, it was valued, not necessarily it was valued because for the work or because you earn lots of money, but for the tarbiyah, for the training that this work provides. And this work was basically shepherding, being a shepherd. This was acceptable because, again, even if you're the chief of a tribe, chief of a clan, a leader, if you make your son a shepherd, people understand the reason why you're making your son a shepherd is because he's trying to teach him some good qualities. He's trying to teach him to be a leader. This was viewed by the Arabs in the culture as something that teaches you leadership. So they understood they understood this. And this was the only thing that was acceptable. The Prophet ﷺ could be a shepherd. And then the Prophet ﷺ, so he actually became a shepherd. And, he took on the only job that was available to him to able to help out his family. And you see that the maturity, the responsibility, the mindset of the Prophet ﷺ, the concern he has very early on, he's very aware of his family and he really wants to help out his family and he's very concerned about his family. And this is a good quality to have in yourself, as young people, right? As young people, to want to help out your family, like we said, be aware of those around you. It's very important when you start earning money that you're not selfish, you think about others. And this is a quality. This gives you qualities of giving sadaqah, and this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really wants from you. If you really want to raise your status in this life and in the next life. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he becomes the shepherd, and of course, we know how this works. Like this plays a very important role in the divine therapy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is like spiritual training to be a shepherd, because the qualities that being a shepherd teaches. So what are the qualities that being a shepherd teaches, which are, very what does he learn from this job, from being a shepherd? So firstly, being a shepherd, it teaches you patience, because you're patient with your flock, right? You're those of you who, if you've seen flocks, you've been to the countryside, when they're feeding, they're roaming around, you have to be patient until each one of them eats. They all eat. They take their time, they roam around, they have their own personalities as well. Like they roam around, each one is different. You have to be patient. And this is leadership training, because people, are similar, right? They have their own personalities. You have to be patient with large groups of people. This is leadership training. And the other thing, what else is being a shepherd? What else is Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? learn, and he learned responsibility. So it teaches you to be it would shepherding teaches you to be observant, responsible, be aware, be conscious, be responsible of what's around you. Because if you're a shepherd, for example, and you become irresponsible, you pass out, you take a nap, you go to sleep, you wake up, what's going to happen? Half your flock is going to be gone, right? You're you doze off because you're tired, or you can't just go and hang out with your friends. You have to be responsible. You have a responsibility for your flock, right? You're a leader for your flock, and this is again a very important quality being a shepherd teaches you. What else does the Prophet ﷺ learn from this? Alertness, being alert, because you always have to be alert at all times being a shepherd, because you have the responsibility of the flock. You're shepherding sheep, and sheep are very simple-minded. They're very simple-minded, and the thing is that they're easily distracted as well. Simple-minded creatures and animals, easily distracted. They're wandering here and there. You always have to be observant, alert. You've got to run here and there, bring them back in. You've got to bring them back. Run around at times. You're always on your toes. You're always keeping an eye on. At the same time, you have to be very active and but cautious and alert, because you know what, there might be dangers. There might be a wolf around the corner. You never know, or a fox or something, right? So you have to be alert. And this is another quality that being a shepherd taught the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is like some of the qualities, and one of the qualities we mentioned that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam he learned being a shepherd, you have to be gentle. Because remember, you're not herding buffaloes, for example, like you're not herding cattle, right? Where if you're herding cattle, big animals, buffaloes, they can take a bit of a beating. Like, you could throw rocks at them, you could kick them around, like they do this sometimes. We're in the city, so we don't see this, but if you go to a slaughterhouse, or where they have these animals, they have like a cattle prod or something. They have like a long stick, and that long stick has a bit of at the end of it, it's a long stick, and it has like an electrical current. So what they do is got a battery and it's got a current, and they can shock the cows. And they can sometimes cows can be stubborn. You can sort of hit the cows and give them a current, and they can sort of move. And the big animals, right? They weigh like 10 times as much as humans, and they're huge. So you can't move them around easily. You can push them around. You can't push them around, or if they're not responding or reacting, you can give them a bit of a shock, and they can take a bit of a beating, and you can be a bit physical with a big animal. But with sheep, you cannot do that, because you can't beat them with sticks. You can't give them a shock. They're going to die. So you have to be gentle with sheep. That's the point, right? You have to remember to be gentle, and similarly with human beings as well, with the training that Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is getting, you have to be gentle. And this is training for managing humans, because when you factor all of these things in, about what does being a shepherd teach? Patience, being responsible, being alert, being gentle. Well, it's perfect training to manage humans. And like we said, the humans are even more distracted than sheep, right? And you might have heard the term, like in the common population, people are referred to as sheep, like sheep. They're called sheep. Why? Because they just copy everybody else. They follow everybody else. They don't use their own mind. They don't use their own intelligence. Like they're the sheep in the large society. And what does Allah SWT say in the Quran? That people are even more distracted and absent-minded than the livestock, than the an'am, like cattle. So that's the thing about the human beings, that they are very distracted. And the thing is, this is just some training the Prophet ﷺ is getting initially, and to for some leadership training. But humans are actually obviously much harder to manage than sheep, because the thing is that human beings are weak and frail. Sheep are weak, right? Sheep are physically weak, like they're not strong, right? They're very frail, they're physically weak. But human beings, they're weak, but their weakness is to do with something else, right? Their weakness is like being very weak emotionally, being sensitive, like being emotionally weak, sensitive, different sort of weakness, spiritually weak. The thing is that you could yell at a sheep and shout at a sheep all day long, and you could say horrible things, bad things, and they just will look at you, they don't care. But the person, a human being, if you just speak to them, you speak to them in the wrong tone, just slightly in the wrong tone, they're gonna say, "Oh, I can't believe you spoke to me like that," and they get all angry, and they're very sensitive. So managing people, just imagine managing like thousands of people, a very large crowd of people with different personalities, different emotions, different sensitivities. That is really tough, and that is even more difficult than sheep. But being a shepherd, this is the first step of training to managing human beings, you could say. And for us, I suppose, we can learn some of these qualities. for example, from even looking after pets, looking after pets and even young children. If you have young siblings, a lot of similar skills are gained by managing, pets and managing even younger siblings. And this will teach you leadership skills, right? Inshallah, because you have to remember, right? It's good to be involved with nature. It's good to be involved with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we spoke about this. To be a really good leader, right? To be someone who's going to be a leader, you have to be involved, spend time with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with other people, with even, like we said, a shepherd, or with even, looking after in some capacity, or animals, or natural things rather than unnatural things like gaming, devices, like social media. These are not going to give you leadership training. These are not going to give you the best character to be a great human being. So I suppose, if you are in the farm life, and that is actually quite a big blessing, I guess, for people, but the rural life is very beneficial in developing a person into a proper leader. But even, in the how in the times we live in, what we have to do is be very conscious that we are not spending too much time unnaturally with unnatural things, and we are constantly engaging with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to develop those skills, the skills the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had, and he is our role model. So, this is just another thing we learn. And we just couple of other points was that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that all the Anbiya, all the prophets, all the Rasul, all the messengers and prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alayhim salam, peace and blessings be upon all of them, they were all shepherds. Like subhanallah, every prophet, every messenger at some stage in their life was a shepherd. This is the training Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, and the training Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving specifically at this time to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not by chance that that he's taken on this job, because obviously there's nothing else available, but this was a divine plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to train the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because every prophet, every messenger has been trained through shepherding livestock, animals, sheep, goats, right? They've all done this. Why? Because this is very specific skills that they gain from managing people, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has this in his plan. So, and then the Sahaba, they asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even you, Ya Rasulullah, even you, like even were you a shepherd? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yes, even me. And he told them the story about his young days working as a shepherd. And just one more point, just to finish off this section of the job. What was the first job that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did in his teens? The final point is that there's even a verse in the Bible where Prophet Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Jesus, and Allahu alam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best about the authenticity of this, but it's interesting, and because it matches what the Quran, it matches the Quran as well, and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us, so we can actually take benefit from this, is that Jesus alayhi salam, Prophet Isa alayhi salam, he told his disciples, he told his students, he gave them the instruction that once I'm gone, shepherd well, shepherd well. So he's talking to them. Once he's gone, obviously he means lead well, lead by example well. He's not telling them, literally, he's not saying lead well. He's saying shepherd well, meaning that he understands and his students understand that being a shepherd is this is the best type of this is the example you have to follow when you are managing people, leading people. Be aware aware of, when you're a leader, the qualities that being a shepherd teaches you. What are the qualities? Like we said, be aware, to be patient with people, be aware of responsibility, be aware of being alert, be aware of being gentle. This is all qualities you need to have as a leader, and this is all qualities, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ingrain these qualities in us to give us, the qualities of being a leader, us and our next generations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to become leaders of, of the muttaqeen. And this is, something that, again, we see that Prophet Isa alayhi salam, even he was a shepherd. So, and this is the consistent teachings of all the prophets, and one of the ways in which they were trained. So, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a shepherd, and it's important to mention this. This is a major, part of the youth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his teenage years. So, in the next session, and going forward, we will mention a story about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is mentioned by Imam al-Bayhaqi, And it follows this understanding, continues on from the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was a shepherd in his teenage years. So, like we said, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to take benefit from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and may He allow us to ingrain in us the leadership skills, the skills that are required to really be of those who are spreading the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who are actually who those leaders who can really rule by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded and follow the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have to aim really high, in terms of for us and our next generations. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.